What's up, everybody? Welcome to Breaking Biotech. Thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Matt, and please hit the like button, share it, leave me a comment. Would greatly appreciate it. Today, I want to talk about three different things. Actually, we're going to start with the macro environment a little bit, talk about the Gilead failure in NASH, talk about DBVT, and then finish up with Catalyst Biosciences. So yeah, how's everyone doing? I have my laptop back, so I'm very excited about that. So I will also get into my portfolio. Yeah, other than that, it's been a pretty good week, pretty heavy news week, which is always entertaining. So if we just get into it, the on the macro stage anyway, uh, Trump signed a funding bill for the government, so there's no more looming shutdown. So that's kind of swept away now. I personally don't think it's great for the country itself, but it's definitely good for the markets. We just keep racking up the debt, the federal government debt, which is not good long term, but right now it's looking good. The SPX finished up at like 227.75, so pretty bullish 2019 so far, and even the XBI closed above 85.8, which I'll show a chart in a second. But the one other piece of news that the markets are waiting for is a trade deal with China. So Trump pushed the deadline for a trade deal further, so the tariffs are going to be delayed. And I think it's going to be kind of a sell the news event, though, just given how much the markets rallied on the potential resolution of these trade issues that have been going on. So if it actually does come to fruition, I think it's going to lead to some more turmoil in the markets. But as long as they keep talking about the potential trade deal, it seems like we're just going to keep going bullish. So looking at the XBI though, I noticed that around this 85.8 region, we hit this a couple times, at least in the last 4 months here. We hit it like 4 times and then failed to break above. Until Friday. So Friday closed at the high and well above 86. So, this would suggest more bullish momentum to follow. But a couple of levels that I'm looking at following this are 89.4. And before it gets there, it'll probably go up and down. But, I don't have any options positions open on the XBI, just equity that I'm holding. And it's only a few shares. So, I'm really surprised how bullish this year has been, or since the December 24th bear market ended, and I think a lot of people are kind of wondering whether or not we're going to go all the way back to new all-time highs, or if we're going to see some sort of retracement from this big move. And I'm not sure, but I'm keeping some cash on the sidelines just in case. So we'll see. But let's get into more interesting stuff. So Gilead, their Stellar-4 trial, their study in patients with compensated cirrhosis with the ASK1 inhibitor Selonsertib, failed dramatically. So the primary endpoint is achieving a greater or equal to 1-stage improvement in fibrosis without worsening of NASH after 48 weeks of treatment. And at 2 different doses, this drug was given, Selonsertib, and both of them showed no improvement over placebo. So I think the p-value for the 6 milligram dose was 1. So very much a failure here. And the stock actually dropped in the news, which isn't super surprising. But all of those losses, I think it got up to like 5% of a loss, but it's completely retraced that loss and it's back to where it was before. And it's not super surprising. I wish I had pulled the trigger when that thought crossed my mind that the losses weren't going to stick around. But what are you going to do? On the positive side, though, the companies with thyroid hormone receptor beta agonists are now up about 10%ish, and they're kind of holding their gains, at least from this news. So I haven't sold anything because I do think they're going to continue to increase once we see some of the intercept data and maybe some more readouts this year. And regarding readouts, so Gilead also does have a similar trial with Selonsertib, except it's with patients with bridging fibrosis. And this is a less severe form of fibrosis. So if you notice, the F4 is the compensated cirrhosis, which is very severe. So F3 is one stage before that, and F0 is very mild, or it might be no cirrhosis at all. So so it's less severe. I see no reason why this should succeed. So I'm expecting a failure here, but this is also a phase 3. But the Atlas phase 2, I'm more mixed on in terms of, you know, what we could see, because it's a combination with their FXR agonist plus the ACC inhibitor and this Selonsertib. So, you know, this combination could be fruitful, and we already know that that FXR agonism is able to reduce NASH in, you know, the Intercept trials that we saw. So it's possible that an FXR agonist in combination with these two could have a more dramatic effect on fibrosis. So I'm more mixed here, and you know, it could be positive, but they would still be pretty far behind a lot of the other phase 2s that I think have a promising future in the space. And yeah, you know, a lot of people were excited on Twitter about Gilead failing this trial because, you know, Gilead has a lot of money on the sidelines, and they could buy up some smaller NASH company that's in an earlier phase. It's possible. I don't see a reason why they would do that, at least until they get an all-around failure with all of their compounds. So if they saw a failure here and a failure here, then, you know, maybe it's something, but I'm not losing sleep waiting around for them to buy Madrigal. I'm pretty comfortable with Madrigal's data and what they're going to be able to do moving forward. So we have Intercept coming up, which is, of course, a big one. OCA is, you know, they showed good data in reducing NASH or reducing fibrosis, but with some side effects. So, you know, I think the data is going to be, they showed an improvement in NASH, but it also came with some side effects regarding exacerbating type 2 diabetes. So I don't think that a positive readout from Intercept is going to be that negative towards Viking or Madrigal. Another company that has a readout coming up, and I've never really talked about them, is Allergan, and it's a compound that's supposed to inhibit macrophage chemotaxis, I believe. You should all do your own due diligence with this, but you know, it's one of those theories in the field right now that the macrophages contribute to the fibrosis in the liver, and if you can prevent the macrophages from infiltrating it, then maybe you can see an improvement in fibrosis. And it's a decent theory because they've also seen macrophages the root cause of a lot of negative things like type 2 diabetes, but I don't know enough to really have an opinion to put any money on it. So if you're interested, though, there's going to be a readout in Q3 of 2019. So definitely do some background there. All right. So DBVT, yeah, that's all I wanted to say right now about NASH. So DBVT, this is the company that has a subcutaneous desensitization therapy for food allergies. And they submitted a BLA for their product in October of last year. And then in December, they got a letter from the FDA saying that they had to provide more information about their manufacturing process. So the company withdrew the BLA, saying that they were going to, you know, provide the necessary data or forms or whatever that the FDA wanted and resubmit. But we didn't really know when this was going to be. So we found out today, not today, but this week, that they figured it out and they're going to resubmit the BLA for Q3 of 2019. So it's an overall delay of 1 year before, you know, from what we didn't realize in October. And if we look at the stock, actually, so this was the date that we got word that they were going to delay the BLA. And, you know, the stock dropped pretty much in half. And then the news that the BLA is going to be resubmitted in Q3 is this pump right here from 7 to about 8. So, you know, the market is very much pricing in that this 1 year delay is going to hold them back from really penetrating the allergy market. And it's possible. I think that there's probably more upside here to DBVT, but there's not really many things to like look forward to until we actually figure out whether or not this delay sets them back in the market. So, you know, I'm tempted to take a position here, and I know I've said that a lot with this company, and I've never actually done it, but you know, this time I might take a look and see what sort of catalysts they have coming up on the other allergies and make a decision there. But you know, this gives Aimmune a big head start in really penetrating the market. So interesting stuff, though. All right, the last thing I want to talk about was Catalyst Bio. So CBIO is a company that is involved in hemophilia, and I've talked a lot about blood disorders and hemophilic products and sickle cell disease, and there's a lot of different companies out there trying to tackle these problems from different directions. So what Catalyst Bio is trying to do is they're trying to come up with compounds that patients can inject subcutaneously in order for patients to get a better, more stable levels of these factors. So they don't have to go through intravenous infusions, and that they can do them themselves, because it's kind of a pain that they have to go somewhere to get this IV done. And if they can get these compounds to be injected sub-Q, then patients can just do them themselves. So there is a need for this for sure, but you know, again, there's a ton of competition in this area, and things like gene therapy are absolutely going to threaten this business. But given that gene therapy still has a decent way before it's actually going to be implemented, I do see that Catalyst Bio could have some upside. So the two products that they're looking at is a factor 7A and a factor 9. Okay, so their factor 9, so these are for patients with hemophilia B, and hemophilia B is actually very, very close to getting a good gene therapy for it. So I know that Spark has a product that's very close, and Sangamo also has a product that's very close. Despite their zinc finger stuff, the hemophilia B product is not the 3 vectors. So it's just the cDNA that they're injecting, that they're getting a virus to put into liver cells. So these candidates are going to absolutely hold this compound back. But basically, their factor 9, Catalyst Bio's factor 9 they came up with, is better potency than the current treatment. So the different cohorts that they have are combinations of injection methods and number of injections. So we can see here that in the cohort that received the most of it, they get relatively stable factor 9, and it's relatively high, which is good. Now, the problem is that in this cohort 6, so the patients that have this high amount of factor 9, they generated neutralizing antibodies, and this obviously prevented the amount of factor 9 activity in these people. But they're moving on. So this is in a phase 1/2, and they did a bunch of tests to figure out the genotype of these people, and the 2 patients that were affected by this are actually cousins, and they both have the same genetic mutation that led them to react and express these neutralizing antibodies against factor 9. So the company's moving forward with a phase 2B, and they started that in this quarter, and they should see data in Q3 of 2019. So Q3 of 2019 is going to be very important for this company for both of their products. So their DALK-A, their factor 9 product, people are really going to be looking for data on neutralizing antibodies in their patients. It seems like the efficacy is there anyway, but the neutralizing antibodies are going to be a very big issue. But the product that I'm more interested in is this factor 7A compound, marziptegog alpha. So 30% of Hem A patients and 5% of Hem B patients develop these inhibitors, just things like antibodies that make the treatments not work. So bypassing agents are needed to make sure that these patients can get their clotting back under control. So I took this one figure, patients before treatment and then after treatment, and we can see a big decrease in the amount of bleeding events. So, you know, I think the efficacy is definitely there for these patients, and they have a phase 3 readout in Q3 as well. Did I say phase 3? Phase 2 data, sorry. Yeah, so at this conference here, this ISTH They're in July. It's going to be an interesting thing, and I think that it's worth playing personally. So they're going to have this neutralizing antibody info as well as some updated data for their Mars AA. And when I looked at the company's financials, they have about $130 million of cash, and they're trading at around $100 million market cap. So I feel like a lot of the downside has been they're already at. Even at like $9, I think it's a decent bet that seeing positive data in either one of these products could increase the stock substantially. So I think I'm going to take a position in anticipation that this compound marzipticog alpha data is pretty good. And even if the DALC-A data isn't that great, I think the stock could definitely increase on that. So I'm going to take a position, and I'll show everybody next week. All right, so with that, this is the portfolio. This is what's been going on lately. So we'll just show you the overall. So overall, I'm at like 2.5% for the year, which is abysmal compared to the S&P and the XBI, which the XBI is almost at like 25 now. Volatility continues to contract. So, you know, we keep going back to that complacency. And I want to say that this means that we're going to get a spike in volatility coming up, but you know, that's not what this means. This basically just means that people are pricing in, or they're less anticipating a big downfall, but that doesn't mean that a big downfall couldn't happen. So anyway, on individual companies, so I mentioned that Viking and Madrigal saw an increase after the bad Selonsertib data, and that's reflected here in the portfolio. I think actually, yeah, Spark is going to have earnings released this week, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. I don't think they have really any big catalysts other than that, but I'm going to have to double check. Yeah, otherwise, still waiting for the Sarepta data, but the stock price has increased a lot in anticipation for good results, so that's good, but we'll wait and see for the data first. Yeah. So that's all I got for you guys today, but thank you so much for watching, and please like and subscribe, and I would really appreciate it. And with that, we'll see you next time.